Right, hello. So, yes, so as it says, from Weird to Wired, the internet and fourth generation anime fandom. To clarify, I am mostly talking about British fandom because I can't honestly say I know much about American or any other international fandoms. So yeah, I'm going to start with just a sort of brief overview of the history of anime in Britain and anime fandom in Britain. See if this is working. No. Okay, so organised fandom kicked off in the UK around about 1990 to 91. When I say organised fandom, I mean in terms of conventions, magazines. Anime UK magazine was founded in 1990 after that year's Worldcon. It started as a fan newsletter and then transitioned into a newsstand magazine in 1991, ran for 6 years, I believe. The first organised anime convention was Anime Day, held in Sheffield in 1991, about 260-ish attendees. That ran until 1994 and was the only anime convention in Britain at that point. It then stopped running in 1994, but other conventions began springing up at that time. Anime had been spottily available on TV and video, mostly aimed towards children. As Andrew said, I grew up on Mysterious Sisters of Gold, Ulysses 31. I know there were people who were older than me who saw things like Marine Boy on TV. Was Astro Boy ever shown in the UK? No, but Marine Boy was. It was the release and popularity of Akira which kicked off the demand for more of the same, as was indicated in the previous panels. Manga video was the dominant force in the 90s. Its early release schedule, it was, following on from Andy Frank's comments, it was more of the same stuff. It prompted early controversy in the UK. Blood and Guts and Bambi Eyes was the quote from The Guardian. It was an article written at the time. It's a very short article, you can read the whole thing online. It's basically about, oh, it's all very misogynistic, but girls seem to like it somehow. Fan subs were about, they were traded on VHS. They were difficult to obtain unless you knew the right people, because the way they were manufactured was you had to know someone who knew 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 someone who had a Laserdisc player and also access to someone else who could speak Japanese. Because you went through so many generations when you watched one, the picture and sound quality were generally quite poor. They operated on a code of honour system with the industry. Licensing companies tended to turn a blind eye to them as long as they were destroyed after license announcements were made, no more distribution after that point. And what they got in return was that they could see what was popular with the fans and maybe choose what they were going to license based on that. Changes really began to occur in the fandom following the English releases, this is in Britain, following the English releases of Pokemon and Cardcaptor Sakura on TV. I remember sitting in the foyer of the Novotel in Southampton at Minamicon 8 and looking at the queue for the dealer's room and thinking, there are a lot of kids here this year, and there are a lot of girls here this year. Previous to that point, the fandom had been a little older. When I say a little older, I mean late 20s onwards, and had been mostly male. So at that point, we began to see more of a balance between male and female convention attendees, more younger attendees, and there has been quite rapid growth in attendance numbers. Minamicon has remained the same size, about 350 attendees, but we now have big summer conventions which have, the fan run cons attract it's a 1,300 maximum capacity. Yeah, so we now have several conventions throughout the year to choose from all over the UK, various different sizes, like I've just said. Amicon and Iacon, the two summer ones, attract around 1,300 attendees. London Expo, which is a corporate event, that sees tens of thousands of visitors over the course of the weekend. It runs twice a year in May and October. In October 2011, they're reporting 62,000 attendees, which is huge. And the numbers are growing each year. Have I skipped one? Sorry, was it? Okay. Ah! Yeah, okay. Alright, so we are no more involved on an international level with American and Japanese guests are now coming to conventions. I remember my first convention was in 1997 Shinnekai, and there was great excitement because there was going to be some Japanese guests there, none of whom then showed up. But it's more reliably now it's usually American voice actors at summer cons, but we have also been seeing Japanese, usually sometimes voice actors who also have a sort of a sideline in the idol industry, and also sort of small indie Japanese rock bands play at the summer conventions. Euro Cosplay was formed a couple of years ago. This is a huge European cosplay event, which was organised by UK organisers, and that's growing every year. We've had the European Cosplay Gathering, which runs in France, which we are involved with, and also this year we had our first ever World Cosplay Summit representatives sent to Japan for the World Cosplay Summit. Alright, so this brings us on to the internet. The internet changed everyone's way of life and continues to do so. Anime fans are no exception in this, but this was, along with Pokemon Card Capture Sakura, the internet was the big thing that really changed the way fandom works in the UK. Anime, and in general really, anime is available more quickly with high definition video and audio. It's easily accessed both legally and illegally. Legally there are streaming sites, things like Crunchyroll, Anime On Demand. They tend to bring out relatively recent things with subtitles which are decent quality. Illegally I'm talking about fan subs which are variable quality, but nonetheless a series can air in Japan on a day and be available very soon after. There are better resources available to cosplayers both in terms of materials and construction tutorials. There are things which are available now which cosplayers use which are unthinkable. When I started going to cons, you wouldn't have dreamed of plastic which you could heat up in a shape and use for cosplay. And it's something that we use now. And also, if you need to know how to make something, you can very easily just go online and there will be people who will have an idea of how to do it. And there's a great free exchange of information there. Communication among fans, as among everyone, is now more immediate thanks to email, Facebook, Twitter, Skype. When I first went to conventions, it was you meet someone, you exchange phone numbers, maybe an address. Now you go to a convention, you meet someone you've never met before. If you've got a smartphone, you can have them on Facebook right there and then. Fanzines used to be a big thing in fandom, but those have died out, I think, because of the expense associated not only with producing them, but also with buying them. They've died out in favour of blogs and webcomics, because anyone can do those, and they're online, and they're free, and you can access them for free. Forums have made it easier to rally the troops, as was the case with the Daily Telegraph and Daily Mirror / Big Brother incidents. Well, these were two separate incidents. A journalist from the Daily Telegraph went to IACON in 2009 and seemed to have basically been given the brief of, these people are a bit strange, go and look at them. And when the article finally came out, funnily enough it wasn't received very well. She just kind of, the article that she wrote was just one of utter confusion at everything. She misrepresented a lot of people. People were justifiably quite angry, and there was a lot of fuss made about it online. The Daily Mirror Big Brother incident, basically researchers from Endemol went to London Expo with a specific brief of get some weird funny people to put on the next series of Big Brother. And people got wind of it beforehand and were just told to be on their guard, and then the stories that came out were that people had come up to them without saying, I'm from Endemol, and talking to people and then saying, oh, by the way, we're from Big Brother. And so, the Daily Mirror then sort of went on to, again, misrepresent people. People were angry about it. Letters were written. I don't know that anything really ever came of it. But nonetheless, there was more activity in that regard. Fans are more likely to expand their interests beyond anime and into Japanese culture in a more general sense. J-pop, for example, is much bigger among anime fans now than it was certainly when I started going to conventions. Not that there wasn't a fan base for it, but it just feels bigger now and more likely to be something which people will have as a peripheral interest. And going to Japan, and when I started going to conventions, that was a real that was a dream thing. It wasn't something that anyone could do. Lots of people who are now into anime have gone to Japan at some point just for a holiday. One of the peculiar things that we've seen more recently is the rise of the net idols. Western girls whose online activities, usually videos, have attracted attention from Japanese audiences. Some names here: Majigon, Dakota Rose, Becky Cruel is the big one because she did actually get picked up for to work as an idol in Japan. Yukipon and Venus Angelic, got some pictures. A lot of them trade on the living doll thing, particularly with Dakota and Venus. That's Becky in the middle there. That's Majigon on the top. She had a strange thing where she kind of just started a video, said, hello, I'm Majigon, and then stared at it for a couple of minutes, and then waved goodbye. And this had a massive audience in Japan, apparently. Alright, Hiroki Azuma is a sociologist who has written quite a bit about otaku culture. Unfortunately, not very much has been translated into English, but his main book, Otaku, Japanese Database Animals, was released in English in 2009. He identifies in his book 3 generations of Japanese otaku, and I think that they correspond quite well to the British fan scene as well. So, first generation, born in the 1960s, grew up on space battleship Yamato and mobile suit Gundam. Second generation, born in the 70s, so roughly a 10-year gap, consumed the same series as the first generation, but did so in a fan culture that had been developed and expanded by the first generation. So there was people coming into a mature attacking culture. Third generation, born in the 80s, saw the Evangelion boom and the rise of the internet in their teens. This is a generation that I personally identify with. Now the thing with Azuma's book is it was published in Japan in 2001, so that does leave it about 10 years out of date now. So my proposal is that there is now a fourth generation. Born in the 90s, most if not all of their life experiences have been mediated through the internet and other technologies. They're less shy about their hobbies, more likely to openly incorporate their fandom into their overall sense of identity, more visible in non-anime communities, and much more tech-savvy and experimental. There are things that you see fans doing now which are... My mind gets blown by them, but at Amicon last month they showed a video, an AMV called Pencilhead, which is someone has... I don't know how they've done it, they've traced all these different animations and merged them all together pretty much seamlessly, and it looks absolutely gorgeous, and that's... My mind is blown by that. But this is where I was going to end but then I did a similar presentation to this at Amicon, and new information came out from that. Basically, I put this definition to the group, and there were several people there who kind of fitted into that in terms of age, born in the early 90s. And they all basically said, no, not really. And I went, oh. Basically, what came out from that is these possibilities, which you would like to have as a discussion topic, maybe. So, there is a generation there. What is it? So yeah, the ones that were at Amicon, they were all internet and tech savvy, but they could remember life before internet, mobile phone technology, or so they said. They embraced geek culture now as adults, 20-somethings, but they also reported being shy about their fandom in their teens, which is something I associate with certainly my teens. So, one of these three possibilities. Are the boundaries of the third generation simply wider and thus incorporating those born in the 90s? I was using a rough guideline of 10 years because that was what Azuma used. But maybe it's just a little bit wider and it stretches out to say 1995. Second possibility, are the boundaries of the fourth generation narrower, meaning that there's a fifth generation of people born in the mid to late 90s? So fourth generation is say 1990 to 1995, and then after 1995 we have the fifth generation. Or, is this a generation 3.5? This is the theory that I like best. This is a bridging generation, one that crosses between the third and fourth generations and incorporates elements of both. And that's where I'm going to leave it, and maybe we can discuss it later.